I was lying on the cold wooden floor of my sister's house, trembling, when his shadow hovered over me like a dark cloud ready to burst. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it would rip through my chest. His hand clamped over my mouth before I could scream. His breath was heavy, mixed with a smell of whiskey, and his voice, low, almost growling, whispered, "Don't fight me, Emily." This is what she would have wanted. I froze. My sister, Lily, had been dead only a week. Everyone thought she committed suicide because she was depressed. But now, lying there helplessly as her husband, Mark, forced himself on me, I realized the truth was much darker. This wasn't about grief. This was obsession. Twisted obsession. As he pressed harder against me, his eyes were wild, not with lust, but with something much scarier. He wasn't seeing me. He was seeing Lily. And in that moment, I realized he was using me to pretend she was still alive. My tears mixed with the floorboards as I silently screamed inside my head. "Why me? Why now?" When he was done, he sat back, panting, with a strange smile. "You look so much like her," he said, his voice soft, almost tender. I wanted to vomit. I wanted to run. But my legs were shaking so violently, they wouldn't move. The front door suddenly creaked. Footsteps approached. My heart leapt. Someone was coming. But instead of relief, terror filled my chest. What if it was someone who believed his lies? What if no one believed me at all? I wiped my tears as Mark turned to the door, his face calm, like nothing had happened. He whispered again, "Remember, you're Lily now." The door opened, and the person standing there froze. The night before everything fell apart, I had come to stay with Mark because I thought he was grieving alone. Lily and I were close. She was my best friend, my rock. We grew up in a small white picket fence town in Oregon, where everyone knew everyone. She married Mark 3 years ago, and to the world, they were the perfect couple. But I knew better. I saw the way he controlled her, how his hand would tighten on her arm when she said the wrong thing, how her smile faded slowly over time. When she died, the police ruled it a suicide. Pills by the bed, a note in shaky handwriting that said, "I can't take it anymore." But the note never felt like her. Lily wasn't the type to give up, no matter how bad things got. At the funeral, Mark cried harder than anyone, loud, messy sobs. But something in his eyes that day made my stomach twist. Still, when he called me a week later, sounding broken, asking if I could stay a few nights because the house felt too empty, I agreed. I wanted to comfort him. I wanted to keep a piece of Lily alive. The first 2 nights were quiet. We barely spoke. He stayed in his room, and I stayed in mine. I spent hours sitting on Lily's bed, smelling her perfume, crying into her pillow. But on the 3rd night, things changed. I woke up to the feeling of someone watching me. The room was dark, but I could see him standing by the door, just staring. "Mark," I whispered, my voice shaking. He stepped closer. You even sleep like her," he murmured. My blood ran cold. That was the first time I truly felt unsafe. I should have left that night. But part of me wanted to believe he was just lost in his grief. I told myself, he's harmless, he just misses her. I was wrong. Now, as I stood trembling in the living room, staring at the person who just walked in, my breath caught in my throat. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Collins, a sweet old lady who lived across the street. Her eyes darted between me and Mark, sensing something was off. "Emily, dear, are you okay?" she asked softly. I opened my mouth to speak, but Mark's hand brushed my shoulder lightly, a warning. "She's fine," he answered for me, smiling. "Just still grieving." Mrs. Collins hesitated, her gaze lingering on my tear-streaked face. I wanted to scream, "Help me," but my voice betrayed me. She nodded slowly, muttered something about bringing over a casserole, and left. The door clicked shut. Mark turned to me, his smile fading into something darker. "You're not going anywhere," he said quietly. I backed away, my heart slamming against my ribs. That night, as I lay awake in Lily's bed, staring at the ceiling, I made myself a promise. I wasn't going to let him break me. I wasn't going to be his replacement for my sister. I was going to survive this, and somehow I was going to make him pay. But before I could even start planning, something happened the next morning that changed everything. The morning sunlight barely crept through the blinds, and I hadn't slept a single minute. My mind kept replaying the night over and over again like a horror movie on repeat. My sister's face kept flashing before my eyes. I kept hearing her voice whispering, "Run, Emily, run." But where would I go? Mark had taken my phone, saying it was for my own good. He had my car keys too. The house was miles from the nearest police station, and he had friends in town who all thought he was the grieving widower. No one would believe me. When I finally got out of bed, I decided to go into Lily's old office, hoping to find some clue, something that would prove she hadn't killed herself. I carefully opened the door, trying not to make any noise. Inside, the air smelled like dust and perfume, the scent of her still lingering. On the desk sat her old laptop, closed but plugged in. My hands shook as I lifted the lid. To my surprise, it powered on. No password. My heart pounded faster. I clicked through her files, searching for anything unusual. Most were just work documents and photos, until I found a hidden folder labeled Help. I clicked. Inside were dozens of voice recordings. My breath caught as I played the first one. "If anything happens to me, it's not because I wanted to die. Mark is controlling everything. He's not who people think he is. Please, Emily, if you ever hear this, protect yourself. He'll come after you too." I froze. My sister had known. She had tried to warn me from the grave. Tears streamed down my face, but I forced myself to keep listening. Recording after recording detailed the abuse she endured, how he isolated her, threatened her, and made her feel like she was losing her mind. The last recording made my blood run cold. He said if I ever leave him, he'll replace me. I don't know what that means, but I'm scared. Please, if he hurts me, don't let him win. The floor creaked behind me. I spun around. Mark was standing in the doorway. His eyes were dark, empty, and his mouth curled into a smile that chilled me to the bone. "You weren't supposed to find that," he said calmly. My heart leapt into my throat. I bolted toward the window, but he grabbed my arm, yanking me back. "You think you can just leave?" he hissed. "You're mine now. You understand. You're Lily." I screamed, struggling against him, but his grip was iron. He shoved me onto the bed, pinning me down. "I told you last night. Don't fight me. She's gone. But you can stay." Suddenly, his phone rang. He froze, releasing me just enough to reach into his pocket. "Don't move," he growled. As he stepped out to answer the call, I slammed the laptop shut and shoved it under the bed. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt, but at least now I had proof. Proof that Lily didn't kill herself. Proof that he was a monster. When he came back, his face was pale. "We have guests coming," he said slowly. "Who?" I asked, my voice trembling. He smirked. "The police. They're coming to check on me. But don't worry, you'll tell them how good I've been to you, right?" My stomach twisted. If I said the wrong thing, he'd kill me. If I stayed silent, I'd never escape. Moments later, a police car pulled into the driveway. 2 officers stepped out. My heart raced as I walked toward the door, Mark's hand gripping my arm like a vice. One officer smiled politely. "Sir, we're just doing a wellness check after some calls about disturbances in the neighborhood." Mark chuckled. "Oh, you know how gossip spreads. Everything's fine here. The officer's eyes shifted to me. Ma'am, are you okay? I opened my mouth. Mark's fingers dug into my arm. I could barely breathe. But then I saw Mrs. Collins standing across the street, watching closely. Her face looked worried. That gave me courage. I took a deep breath and said, "Please help me." The officers exchanged glances. Mark laughed nervously. "She's just confused, still grieving." But before he could finish, the officers stepped inside. That's when Mark snapped. He slammed the door shut, locked it, and lunged at one of the officers, grabbing his gun. The room erupted into chaos, shouting, struggling, everything spinning. I screamed as shots rang out. When the smoke cleared, Mark was on the floor, bleeding but still alive. The officers were shaken, calling for backup. As they dragged him away, he turned his head toward me, his voice weak but filled with venom. "This isn't over, Emily. You'll never be free from me." That night, I packed my things, determined to leave forever. But as I walked to my car, I saw something on the windshield, an envelope. Inside was a single photo of Lily and me as kids, with a note on the back in Mark's handwriting. "You'll always be her." My hands trembled. He was in jail, yet I felt like he was still watching me. And the next morning, when I turned on the news, I saw something that made my blood freeze all over again. The morning sun rose, but it didn't bring peace. My hands shook as I clutched my coffee mug, trying to calm the storm inside me. The TV flickered, showing a reporter outside the county jail. My breath caught as the words on the screen burned into my mind. Breaking news. Local man escapes police custody. I almost dropped the mug. The reporter's voice filled the room. Authorities confirmed that Mark Thompson, who was arrested last night after an altercation with police officers during a wellness check, managed to overpower a guard during transport. He is considered extremely dangerous. Residents are urged to stay indoors and report any suspicious activity. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. Mark was free. He was coming for me. I rushed to grab my phone, but the line was dead. The screen read no signal. My stomach churned. Had he already cut the power? Or was this just a coincidence? Fear crawled under my skin. Then I heard it. The sound of tires crunching on gravel outside. Slow. Deliberate. I peeked through the curtains and my blood ran cold. A black truck idled at the edge of the driveway. I couldn't see the driver, but I didn't need to. I knew it was him. I backed away from the window, my breathing shaky. Suddenly, my phone lit up, an unknown number calling. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Emily." His voice was low, almost a whisper. "You can't run from me. You can't hide. You'll always be her." I slammed the phone down, my whole body trembling. I had to get out. Now. I grabbed my purse, Lily's laptop, and bolted out the back door, cutting through the yard. I didn't even bother with my car. I knew he'd be watching it. My feet pounded against the damp grass as I sprinted toward the woods behind the house. The trees swallowed me, their branches scraping my skin, but I didn't stop. Halfway through the forest, my foot caught on a root and I fell hard, scraping my knees. Pain shot through me, but I forced myself up. I had to survive. For Lily. For me. I kept running until I reached an old, abandoned cabin. I pushed the door open. It creaked loudly, sending a shiver down my spine, but it was empty. Dust floated in the air like tiny ghosts. I locked the door and pressed my back against it, sliding down to the floor. That's when I remembered the laptop. I opened it, desperate for a plan. As I searched through Lily's files again, I found something new, a video file dated the night before she died. My breath hitched as I clicked play. The screen showed Lily, her eyes red from crying. He said tonight is the night. If I don't agree to what he wants, He'll make me disappear. Emily, if you're watching this, don't let him win. Please. The video ended abruptly. Tears blurred my vision. My sister hadn't killed herself. He had. The floor creaked behind me. I froze, slowly turning my head. Mark stood there, his silhouette filling the doorway. You found her video, he said, his voice almost gentle. Good. Now you understand why you have to stay. I stumbled back, my hands trembling. Why are you doing this to me? I cried. His smile was chilling. Because you are her now. And I won't let you go. He stepped closer, and I grabbed the nearest object, an old rusty lamp, and swung it with all my strength. It hit him in the shoulder, and he roared in pain. I bolted for the door, but he grabbed my ankle, pulling me down. We struggled, the sound of our fight echoing through the empty cabin. I kicked and screamed, clawing at the floor. Somehow, I broke free and ran out into the night, not daring to look back. Branches whipped against my face as I sprinted through the trees. My chest burned, my legs screamed, but I didn't stop until I reached the edge of the highway. Cars zoomed past, and I waved desperately. Finally, a truck screeched to a halt. The driver, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, jumped out. Miss, are you okay? No, I gasped. Please, call the police. He's coming. The driver grabbed his phone, dialing 911. But before the call could connect, headlights appeared behind us. The black truck. Mark was here. The driver shouted for me to get in, but before I could, the truck rammed into us, sending me sprawling onto the pavement. Pain exploded in my side, and everything went blurry. Through the haze, I saw him step out, calm as ever. You can run, Emily, he said, his voice like ice, but you'll never escape me. He raised something in his hand. I couldn't see what it was, but fear shot through me like lightning. And then, sirens. Red and blue lights flashed in the distance. Mark cursed under his breath, jumping back into his truck and speeding off into the night. The police rushed to me, their voices loud and urgent, but all I could hear was my sister's voice whispering, "Don't let him win." I was safe, for now. The officers promised they'd catch him, but deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Mark was out there, watching, waiting. That night, as I lay in the hospital bed, I received a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of me, taken through the hospital window. The message read, "You can't hide from me, Lily." The hospital room was dim, the only light coming from the beeping heart monitor beside me. My hands clutched the blanket, trembling as I stared at the text on my phone. You can't hide from me, Lily. He was here. Somewhere close. I hit the call button frantically, and a nurse rushed in. What's wrong, sweetie? She asked. He's outside. I cried. Please, you have to call the police again. He's watching me. The nurse's face softened, but I saw the doubt in her eyes. Emily, the police said he's probably far away by now. You're safe here. Safe. That word felt like a cruel joke. Minutes later, 2 officers came to check the perimeter. They found nothing, but I knew he was out there. I could feel it like a chill crawling up my spine. The next day, detectives visited my room. We've set up a security detail for you, one of them said. But you need to help us. Do you have anything that can prove he killed your sister? I nodded weakly. Her laptop. The recordings. They took it, promising to analyze the files. But part of me worried it wouldn't be enough. Mark was clever. He always found a way to twist the truth. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow looked like him. And then, at exactly 2 a.m., the hospital lights flickered. My breath caught. The power went out. The emergency lights kicked in, casting an eerie red glow through the halls. My door creaked open slowly, and I froze. A figure stood in the doorway, tall and unmoving. "Emily." The voice was a whisper. My heart nearly stopped. But then, the figure stepped into the light. It was Officer Green, my assigned guard. "Sorry, didn't mean to scare you," he said. "Just making rounds." I let out a shaky breath. But my relief didn't last long. The following morning, I overheard the nurses whispering. They found one of the officers unconscious in the parking lot. My stomach dropped. When I asked what happened, they said the cameras caught nothing. Whoever attacked him was skilled, invisible. My pulse raced. I knew it was Mark. He was getting closer. I begged the detectives to move me to a safe house. They agreed, transferring me under heavy guard. The safe house was a small, isolated cabin owned by the department. Ironically, it felt just like Lily's old place, quiet, surrounded by trees. Too quiet. That first night there, I sat on the couch clutching a knife, staring at the locked doors. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows. My nerves were frayed, every creak in the floorboards making me jump. Around midnight, I heard a faint tapping on the glass. Tap, tap, tap. I slowly turned my head toward the window. There, drawn in the condensation, were the words, "Hello, Lily." My blood ran cold. I ran to the back door, but it wouldn't open. Someone had jammed it from outside. The lights cut out again. I stumbled in the dark, my breath shaky, clutching the knife. Then I heard his voice, calm and chilling, right behind me. "You can't run anymore. You're mine." I swung the knife wildly, but he grabbed my wrist mid-air, twisting it until I cried out. "Shoo, don't fight me," he hissed. I kicked him, managing to break free, and darted into the bedroom, slamming the door shut and locking it. My hands fumbled with the phone, calling 911. The operator's voice was calm, but I was screaming into the receiver. "He's here. He's inside." The operator told me to stay quiet, stay hidden, help was coming. But I could hear him outside the door, laughing softly. "You think they'll get here in time?" The door rattled as he banged on it, harder and harder. My heart pounded like a drum. I pressed myself against the wall, knife in hand, whispering to myself to stay strong. Suddenly, the banging stopped. Silence. The next sound was worse. The sound of the door slowly creaking open. I screamed as he lunged toward me, but before he could reach me, flashing red and blue lights filled the room. Officers swarmed in, tackling him to the ground. He fought like a madman, screaming my sister's name, but they finally dragged him away in handcuffs. As they shoved him into the police car, he turned his head and smiled at me, his face twisted with rage and obsession. "This isn't over, Lily," he said through the window. "It'll never be over." My knees gave out, and I collapsed onto the floor, sobbing. The detectives assured me he would be locked away this time, no escape. But deep down, I didn't believe them. He had escaped before. He could do it again. Later that night, I opened Lily's laptop one last time. There was a new file that hadn't been there before. My hands shook as I clicked on it. It was a live video feed. Mark, sitting in a dark room, smirking at the camera. "I told you, Emily. You'll always be her." The feed cut to black. I sat frozen, staring at the laptop screen long after the video ended. My mind raced. Mark was supposed to be in a maximum security prison, under constant watch. How could he send a live video? How could he still reach me? A chill ran down my spine. I realized this wasn't just about Mark anymore. Someone was helping him. The next morning, I went straight to Detective Harris, the lead investigator on the case. "You have to see this," I said, showing him the video. His eyes narrowed as he watched. "This is impossible. The feed looks live." It was live, I whispered. He's not alone. Someone's helping him. The detective promised to look into it, but I could tell from his expression he wasn't convinced. Later that day, I tried to clear my head by walking through the yard of the safe house. The air was cold, sharp against my skin, but at least it was quiet. Or so I thought. When I turned the corner, I saw something pinned to the tree with a knife, a single white rose. My breath hitched. Attached to it was a note, written in Mark's handwriting. Almost home, Lily. My knees buckled, and I stumbled back inside. Whoever was helping him had been here, watching me. That night, the detectives installed extra cameras around the cabin. They even placed an officer inside to watch over me. I tried to sleep, but every creak made my heart jump. Around 3 a.m., the officer sitting in the living room suddenly stepped outside to check the perimeter. He didn't come back. Minutes later, the cameras inside the house went static. One by one, the screens went dark. I knew something was wrong. My breathing grew shallow as I grabbed the knife from under my pillow. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Slow. Deliberate. Emily. The voice was low, taunting. I bolted out of the room, my heart pounding. The hall was empty, but I felt eyes on me. I ran for the back door, but it was locked, again. I fumbled with the key, my hands shaking, when I heard him chuckle behind me. You never learn, do you? I spun around and saw a shadow move across the wall. Without thinking, I swung the knife, but it hit nothing. Then a hand grabbed me from behind, covering my mouth. I struggled, kicking and biting, until a flashlight beam cut through the darkness. Police! Drop her! The hand released me, and Mark, or someone who looked like him, vanished into the shadows. Officers stormed in, guns drawn, but found nothing. He was here, I gasped. I swear he was here. The officers exchanged uneasy glances. They believed me, but they couldn't explain how he got in, or out, without being seen. The next morning, Detective Harris arrived with grim news. We reviewed last night's footage. The cameras outside the cabin were cut from the inside. Someone tampered with them before the attack. You think one of your own officers is helping him? I asked. His jaw tightened. We're not ruling anything out. My stomach twisted. If I couldn't trust the police, who could I trust? Desperate for answers, I opened Lily's laptop again. I searched through every file, every recording, hoping for a clue. That's when I found an email draft she had written but never sent. It was addressed to me. Emily, if anything happens, know that Mark has someone in law enforcement on his side. He calls him the Watcher. Don't trust anyone easily. Protect yourself. The Watcher. Someone on the inside was feeding Mark information. My hands shook as I closed the laptop. I had to get out before they came for me again. I packed a bag quietly, not telling the officers inside. Just as I was about to slip out, the lights in the house flickered, and then went out completely. The emergency generator hummed to life, but the halls were bathed in a dim red glow. The front door creaked open slowly, even though I had locked it. A figure stepped inside, wearing a police uniform. For a moment, relief washed over me. Detective! I whispered. The figure raised his head, and my heart stopped. It wasn't Harris. It wasn't any officer I knew. It was Mark. He smiled, lifting a stolen badge. Told you, Lily. They all work for me now. I stumbled back, clutching the knife, but before I could react, he lunged. I screamed, swinging the blade blindly. It grazed his arm, and he roared in pain. Suddenly, headlights flooded the room. An unmarked car screeched to a halt outside. Real officers stormed in, guns drawn. Mark fled through the back, disappearing into the woods. Hours later, I sat in the back of a police car, shaking uncontrollably. He's not going to stop, I whispered to Detective Harris. No, he admitted, his voice grim. But we'll catch him. I wasn't so sure. When I finally returned to the hospital for observation, I opened my phone to check messages. There was one new video. It showed Mark, standing in a dark room, blood dripping from his arm, smiling at the camera. Behind him, tied to a chair, was Officer Green, the guard from the night before. Mark leaned close to the lens. See? I always win, Lily. Always. The video ended. My entire body went cold. The video replayed in my head all night. Officer Green's terrified eyes. Mark's bloody grin. His voice echoing like a curse. I always win, Lily. Something inside me snapped. For weeks, I had been running, hiding, crying. That wasn't living. That was dying slowly. I realized if I didn't stop him, he'd keep coming back. He'd keep winning. No more. At dawn, I called Detective Harris. I'm not staying in another safe house, I said firmly. Emily, he's dangerous. So am I when I have nothing to lose, I interrupted. There was silence on the line. Then he sighed. What's your plan? I didn't tell him everything. Not yet. I needed to do this my way. I started by digging into Mark's past, using Lily's laptop and every record I could access. I found out he had been dishonorably discharged from the military years ago for violent behavior. He had a history of manipulation, always getting someone else to do his dirty work. That's when I remembered the Watcher. Lily's emails suggested he was someone high up, someone Mark had dirt on. If I could figure out who, I could turn the game around. That afternoon, I disguised myself. Hoodie, sunglasses, hair tied back, and went to the Old Town Library. It had a public computer that couldn't be traced to me. Using a secure connection, I hacked into Lily's old cloud backups. There, I found something huge, a list of names and bank transactions. Payments to someone listed only as W. The amounts were large, deposited right after suspicious events, like when Lily's suicide case was closed too quickly. My heart pounded. This was proof. I downloaded everything onto a flash drive and left quickly, glancing over my shoulder every few seconds. When I got back to the cabin, I packed a backpack with essentials: cash, burner phone, knife, and the flash drive. My plan was simple but risky. Lure Mark out, expose the Watcher, and end this nightmare. That night, I recorded a message on my phone and uploaded it to a hidden online forum Mark was known to use. My voice was steady, cold. Mark, you want me? Come find me. I'll be where it all started. I sent my location, Lily's old house. The place was abandoned now, boarded up and silent. The air was thick with memories and fear. I waited in the living room, knife hidden under my sleeve, camera recording everything. Hours passed. The clock ticked loudly. Then I heard it, the crunch of boots on the porch. The door creaked open. Mark stepped in, dressed in black, eyes wild. You came back, he said, almost tenderly. You want me, Mark? I said, my voice steady. Then let's finish this. He lunged, but this time I was ready. I slashed his arm, then kicked him hard, sending him crashing into the table. He laughed through the pain. That's my Lily, he spat. Suddenly, another figure stepped in, the man I least expected. Detective Harris. Or rather, the Watcher. He pointed a gun at me. You just couldn't stay quiet, could you? My stomach dropped. Lily had been right. The Watcher wasn't just helping Mark. He was controlling everything. Mark smirked at him. Told you she'd come back. For a moment, I thought it was over. But then Harris turned his gun on Mark. You've become a liability, he said coldly. Mark's eyes widened. You wouldn't. I would, Harris said. She's no longer part of the plan. The tension snapped like a wire. I dove for the camera, grabbed the flash drive, and bolted out the door as gunshots erupted behind me. I ran through the trees, heart pounding, not stopping until I reached the main road. A truck screeched to a halt, the driver shouting if I was okay. I climbed in, clutching the flash drive to my chest. Behind us, flames rose from the house. I didn't know who survived, Mark, Harris, or neither, but I knew this wasn't over. Later that night, as I hid in a motel miles away, I plugged in the flash drive to send everything to the FBI. My hands trembled, but I felt a strange calm. I was no longer the victim. When the upload finished, I leaned back, exhausted. Then my burner phone buzzed. A new message appeared. It was a photo of the burning house, with a single line. "You think you won, Lily? The game's just starting." The message on my burner phone burned into my eyes. "You think you won, Lily? The game's just starting." I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. Part of me wanted to scream, cry, collapse. But I didn't. Instead, I let the fear harden into something else. Anger. Determination. If Mark and the Watcher wanted a game, I was going to end it. On my terms. The next morning, I checked out of the motel before sunrise. I paid cash, leaving no trace. The flash drive was now safely in the hands of an FBI agent I trusted, someone outside the local force, far from the Watcher's influence. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was one step ahead. I spent the next few days moving from place to place, never staying in the same spot twice. During the day, I researched everything I could about the Watcher. At night, I trained my body, running, lifting, even practicing with knives. I wasn't just hiding anymore. I was preparing. On the third night, I hacked into a secure police database using a contact I had met through Lily's old tech job. What I found confirmed my worst fears. Detective Harris, aka the Watcher, had covered up multiple crimes linked to Mark, deleting evidence and silencing witnesses. But there was more. Hidden in the files was a video. It showed Harris and Mark shaking hands in a dimly lit room. Harris said, "Once she's broken, she'll obey. Just like Lily did." Mark replied with a chilling smile, "And if she doesn't?" Harris smirked. "Then we erase her. Like the others." My blood ran cold. There were others. I wasn't the first. I knew I couldn't face them alone. I reached out to Agent Carla Reed, the only FBI agent who had believed me when I sent the files. She called me back within an hour. "Emily, we've been tracking Harris for months. Your evidence is enough to bring him down, but we need him to slip up. We need him to reveal everything." I swallowed hard. "Use me as bait." She hesitated. "That's dangerous. You could die." "I'm already dead to them," I said. "It's time to fight back." We set the trap. I posted a public message online, pretending to be desperate and ready to surrender to Mark. The message included a location, the old train yard where Lily and I used to play as kids. The FBI surrounded the area, hidden but ready. Night fell, and I waited in the shadows, heart pounding. The wind howled through the abandoned trains, rattling the metal like whispers of the past. Then I heard footsteps. Mark appeared first, limping slightly from his injuries, but still smiling. "You came," he said, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "Of course," I said, my voice steady. "This ends tonight." Harris stepped out of the darkness behind him, gun in hand. "Brave of you to show up, Emily," he said. "Too bad bravery won't save you." I kept them talking, slowly backing toward the center of the yard where the cameras and microphones were hidden. "You killed my sister," I said. Mark smirked. "She killed herself. I just gave her a reason." "You abused her, broke her, and then tried to do the same to me." Harris interrupted. "Enough. She dies now." He raised the gun. Before he could pull the trigger, FBI snipers' red dots appeared on their chests. "Drop your weapons! FBI!" Voices shouted from all around. Harris panicked, grabbing me as a shield. "One step closer and she dies," he screamed. Mark looked at him, furious. "You're ruining this." The tension was unbearable. I felt Harris's grip loosen slightly as he adjusted his aim. In that split second, I slammed my elbow into his ribs, ducked, and rolled away. Gunfire erupted. Harris fell, hit by a sniper's bullet. Mark screamed and charged, but I grabbed a metal pipe from the ground and swung with all my strength. The blow knocked him off his feet. Agents swarmed, pinning Mark to the ground as he thrashed and cursed, his voice echoing through the yard. "You'll never be free, Lily. Never." When it was over, I stood there trembling, watching them drag Mark and Harris away in cuffs. The FBI agent approached me, her voice soft. "It's done, Emily. You're safe now." Safe. This time, maybe it was true. But as I turned to leave, something caught my eye on the ground where Mark had fallen, a small piece of paper. I picked it up. It was a photo of me, taken that very night, with a single line written on the back. "The game isn't over. Someone else is watching." The photo trembled in my hand as if it carried its own pulse. The handwriting was different, tighter, colder. Someone else had been there that night, watching everything unfold. My blood chilled. The nightmare wasn't over. I slipped the photo into my pocket before the agents saw it. If there was someone else, I had to find out who without alerting anyone. Trusting the wrong person could mean my death. The next morning, I met with Agent Reed at FBI headquarters. She looked confident, satisfied. "Mark and Harris are locked away in federal custody," she said. "They'll never see daylight again." I nodded but didn't tell her about the photo. Something in my gut told me the conspiracy went deeper than she realized. As I left the building, I noticed a man in a dark suit standing across the street. He wasn't FBI. His gaze locked on me, then he disappeared into a black car. My instincts screamed that he wasn't just a random passerby. That night, I returned to the motel. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every detail of the photo, where it was found, the handwriting, the timing. Someone had been close enough to take that picture without being seen by the agents or the cameras. Suddenly, my laptop pinged. A new email appeared from an unknown sender. The subject line read, "You're not done, Lily." I opened it cautiously. Inside was a single video file. It showed a room, dim, sterile, with white walls. Mark and Harris sat side by side, not in prison uniforms but in plain clothes. They were laughing. The camera panned to reveal a man in a black mask standing over them. His voice was distorted. They served their purpose. Now it's time for the next phase. The video ended with the same words from the photo. "Someone else is watching." My stomach turned. The mastermind wasn't Mark or Harris. They were just pawns. The next day, I made a decision. I wasn't going to wait for them to come for me again. I was going to find whoever was behind this. Using the email's metadata, I traced the origin to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. I armed myself with a small pistol Agent Reed had reluctantly allowed me to carry and drove there at dusk. The warehouse loomed like a dark skeleton against the fading sky. Inside, it smelled of rust and oil. My footsteps echoed as I moved between the old machinery. A voice came from the shadows. "I knew you'd come, Lily." My heart pounded. "Who are you?" I demanded. The masked man stepped into the light. "I am the one who controls the game. Mark, Harris, they were useful. But you, Emily, you're special. You survived. That makes you dangerous." I tightened my grip on the gun. "You killed my sister. You ruined my life. He tilted his head. Your sister? She was just a test. You passed it. Before I could react, he lunged, knocking the gun from my hand. We struggled, slamming into the metal beams. My knife slipped from my pocket, and I grabbed it, slashing his arm. He screamed but kept fighting, his strength almost inhuman. Then I remembered the camera I had hidden in my jacket, live-streaming everything to Agent Reed. The FBI was watching. The masked man ripped off his mask, revealing a face I didn't recognize, tall, pale, with piercing blue eyes. You'll never stop us, he hissed. We're everywhere. Before he could strike again, agents stormed the warehouse. He bolted through a side door, disappearing into the night. Agent Reed grabbed my arm. You okay? I nodded, shaking. He's not alone. This goes deeper. We'll find him, she said firmly. Days later, I stood at Lily's grave, the cold wind whipping around me. They tried to break me, I whispered, but I'm still here. And I'm not stopping until every single one of them is gone. As I turned to leave, I noticed something tucked into the flowers on her headstone, a small device with a blinking red light. A voice crackled through it. Game over? No, Emily. This is only the beginning. The light went out. I walked away, my jaw set. They thought I was the hunted. But from now on, I was the hunter. After the warehouse incident, the FBI placed me under their direct protection, but I knew no safe house or squad of agents could shield me from what was coming. The man in the mask, whoever he was, had a network that reached far beyond anything the FBI understood. They were in law enforcement, the military, even everyday life. Agent Reed offered to relocate me under a new identity, but I refused. They'll find me no matter where I go, I told her. So I'm going to find them first. She hesitated, then finally said, If you're serious, you won't do it alone. I'll help. The following weeks were a blur of planning. Using the files from Lily's laptop and new intel the FBI uncovered, we tracked several sleeper agents tied to the masked man. Each one was a piece of the puzzle. One was a former prison warden who had helped Mark escape. Another was a hacker who wiped surveillance records whenever the network needed to move undetected. Piece by piece, we mapped out their organization. They called themselves the Circle, and they thrived on fear, manipulation, and control. Lily had been one of many victims used to test their methods. The deeper I dug, the more dangerous it became. I started receiving anonymous calls at night. Sometimes I'd hear breathing, sometimes a distorted voice whispering, "Tick-tock, Lily." One evening, Agent Reed called with urgency in her voice. We found their central hub. It's an underground facility disguised as a warehouse in the industrial district. But Emily, they know you're coming. They want you to come. I don't care, I said, my voice like steel. Set it up. We finish this. That night, under the cover of darkness, we moved in with a small tactical team. The facility was heavily guarded, but we slipped through the shadows, disabling cameras as we went. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of chemicals and the hum of machinery. We reached a massive room filled with screens, each one showing live feeds of random people's homes, businesses, even prisons. My stomach twisted. They weren't just watching me, they were watching everyone. Then the masked man appeared on one of the screens, his distorted voice filling the room. Welcome back, Lily. You've made it further than anyone. But this is where it ends. The lights went out, plunging us into darkness. Gunfire erupted, screams filled the air. Chaos exploded around me as agents fought unseen attackers. I crawled to the control panel, ripping wires and smashing screens while bullets whizzed past. Suddenly, a hand grabbed me from behind, yanking me up. The masked man was there, taller and more menacing than before. You think you can destroy the Circle? He snarled. We built this world. I struggled, punching and kicking, but he was strong. Just when I thought it was over, Agent Reed tackled him from the side. They fought viciously, trading blows until Reed managed to rip off his mask. His face was calm, almost handsome, but his eyes were dead. "You're too late," he hissed. "The circle doesn't end with me." Before he could reach for his gun, I grabbed a metal rod and struck him across the head with all my strength. He collapsed, unconscious. The FBI stormed in, securing the facility and arresting every operative they could find. But I knew in my heart that the circle had other leaders hiding in the shadows. As dawn broke, I stood outside the burning facility, the rising sun painting the sky red. Agent Reed walked over, her face bruised but determined. "You were right," she said. "This goes deeper than we thought." I stared at the horizon. "Then we dig deeper. This isn't over until every last one of them is gone." At that moment, my phone buzzed. Another message. A video played, dozens of masked figures standing in a circle, chanting in unison. The caption read, "You killed one of us. We will rise again. And when we do, Lily, you'll be ours forever." I didn't flinch. Not anymore. Fear had turned into fire, and I was ready to burn their entire empire down. Over the next month, I worked side by side with the FBI, hunting the circle's remnants. Every raid, every arrest, every confrontation brought me closer to the truth. But for every member we caught, two more seemed to appear. The circle wasn't just an organization, it was a cult, a movement. Their reach was global. One night, while reviewing data, Agent Reed uncovered something terrifying. The circle was planning a mass operation, something big enough to paralyze the country. The target was Washington, D.C., and it was happening in less than 72 hours. "This is it," I said. "We stop this, or we lose everything." We flew to D.C. under tight security, setting up an operation to intercept them. The plan was risky. I would pose as bait again, drawing out the network's top leaders while the FBI closed in. The night of the operation, I stood in the center of an abandoned metro station, my heart steady despite the danger. I wore a small camera, broadcasting everything live to the command center. Whispers echoed from the tunnels. Then figures emerged from the shadows, dozens of masked members surrounding me. The leader stepped forward, the same pale blue eyes glaring from under his mask. "You can't stop what's coming," he said. "I already have," I replied, pressing the detonator in my pocket. Explosions ripped through the tunnels, not deadly, but strong enough to collapse the exits and trap them inside. FBI agents stormed the station, guns drawn. A brutal fight erupted, echoing through the underground. I fought with everything I had, striking, dodging, surviving. At one point, the leader lunged at me with a knife, but I caught his wrist and slammed him into the wall. "This ends now," I hissed. He smirked even as agents cuffed him. "Cut off one head, and two more will rise." By dawn, the operation was over. Dozens of members were captured. Their planned attack was dismantled. But I knew he was right. The circle wasn't gone. Weeks later, I stood again at Lily's grave, the wind gentle this time. "I did it, Lily," I whispered. "I stopped them, for now. But I'll never stop fighting." As I turned to leave, a black car slowed down nearby. The window rolled down just enough for me to see another masked figure inside. He raised a gloved hand in a mock salute before the car sped away. I didn't chase it. Not yet. Instead, I smiled faintly. "Run while you can," I whispered. "Because next time, I'm coming for all of you." Emily's journey concludes with her becoming not just a survivor, but a relentless hunter. The circle still lurks in the shadows, but they now fear the one woman they couldn't break. This ending leaves room for a sequel where Emily takes the fight global, turning the hunter into a legend who dismantles the network piece by piece.